So Adrian, one of the things you talk about in the book, which I think is really key, is just getting feedback from customers, which I'm not sure companies do all the time or do right. What for you is the best way of getting useful feedback from your customers?
So I think there's two types. Two types of feedback I'd like to talk about. One is that the standard asking for how did we do and so on and so forth. But I think the key thing to remember about when companies ask for feedback is, one, to make it timely and to also make it quick and easy. I see so many companies that have these customer feedback forms, and it's almost a bit like, how long are the questions? And they fall into this trap. Oh, and it tends to get sent to them about 2 weeks or a month or 2 months after they've kind of bought something. Like, who are they? What did I buy from them? I don't remember anything. So actually, don't design your survey just to benefit you. Design your survey so it's of use to the customer. So it's building on their perspective, and then you can then infer sort of things that are useful for you. But make it so it's timely, so that it's in the moment, and the memory of the experience is fresh in their head, but also that it's quick and easy for them to do. But then the second part of the feedback is based on this idea that there's a thing called silent complaints that floats around. And it's all these little things that are just not bad enough for us to complain or for us to notice. We know what they are, we've all felt them. But they largely go unnoticed. But they get remembered, and you end up stockpiling them. And you go, oh no, there's just something about that company, there's just all these little things, and I'm just not going to use them anymore. And I call them silent complaints. And I think there's a really valuable thing that companies can do is to go and investigate all the little bits of grit that exist in their service and their experience, and to try and get feedback from their customers about what are the little things, however slight, may have annoyed you or irritated you in the past. And if you can go and ask your customers about those, they will tell you some wonderful things where you can make these little kind of changes, and then go back to them and go, you know that thing you told us? Well, we made that change. And then they go, oh, you're listening. Oh, that's cool. And that builds on the retention and the loyalty and so on and so forth. So I think there's a number of ways that companies can get feedback from their customers. But I think that it needs to be timely and it needs to be quick, but also needs to focus on the little things as well.
So with the timely issue, I mean, that obviously makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't send a survey out 4 months after someone bought something. But when is the right time? So I mean, being silly for a minute, someone could buy something, and as they're leaving, oh, by the way, would you fill that in?
Yeah.
So I mean, where is that sweet spot, if you like, where it's fair enough to ask, and soon enough that they remember, but also giving them a moment to reflect or whatever else?
So I think you've got to test things to see what works. Like if I went somewhere and I bought something or experienced something, and then as I was leaving, somebody handed me something, said, "Have you got a moment? Can you fill that in?" I'm going to look at that, and does that tick the timely and easy boxes? And like timely, yes. Easy, probably not, because you're actually having to give me something to do it. But if you get it right in terms of the format and how quickly how easy you make it for the customer to complete it, you can get some fantastic responses. There's been some sort of broadband companies that use a way of confirming, via text message, using a way of confirming appointments. Like when you go, somebody's coming in to install the phone or the broadband, and they send you a text saying, "Oh, engineers coming around kind of such a time," and you wait in, and they come and they fix it, and then they leave. But they added a feedback thing on the back of it, where as soon as the engineer leaves and they send a message back to base and that job's done, then another text message comes and says, "Oh, Dave is just going to finish his appointment. How did we do? Rated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever the scale might be." Now, normal feedback response rates, survey response rates, are in the, if you're getting into double digits, you're doing really, really well. Anything north of sort of like 5-6% is generally very well. they were getting response rates north of 50% because it was right in the moment. And they got some fantastic sort of feedback. So that's just an example of doing something that's one, really easy, but also very, very kind of timely based on that particular context. But I think the important thing to add is that there is no one size fits all. You've got to be willing to, like we've talked about previously, is that you've got to be willing to try something and willing to fail as you get on that journey of how do I improve my service, how do I improve my relationships with my customers.